Let me ask you something. Have you ever canceled plans, not because you were busy, not because you were tired, but because staying at home felt better? And then almost immediately a second thought appeared. Is this normal? Why do I feel this way? Why don't I want what everyone else seems to want? If you've ever felt that, stay with me, because preferring to stay at home says a lot about how your mind works, and most people misunderstand it completely. Let's start by clearing something up. People who prefer staying at home are often labeled quickly lazy, boring, antisocial, missing out on life. But psychology tells a very different story, because in most cases, staying home isn't about avoiding life. It's about choosing the environment where your mind functions best. For some people, stimulation fuels them. For others, stimulation drains them. And home happens to be the place where stimulation finally slows down. Think about what happens when you step outside. Even if nothing stressful happens, your brain is still working. Reading faces, processing sounds, adjusting behavior, staying alert. You're constantly responding. At home, that stops. You don't have to interpret anyone. You don't have to react. You don't have to manage yourself. For many people, home isn't just comfort, it's mental silence. And once you experience how good that silence feels, you start craving it more than noise. Here's something important. Two people can have the exact same social experience and walk away feeling completely different. One feels energized, the other feels empty. Why? Because some minds process social interaction lightly, others process it deeply. They notice small changes in tone, emotional undercurrents, unspoken expectations. They're not anxious, they're attentive, and attention takes energy. So staying home isn't a rejection of people, it's a way to protect mental resources. Outside, even with friends, we often perform without realizing it. Not in a fake way, but in a shaped way. You adjust your personality slightly, you filter thoughts, you react faster than you want to. At home, there's no audience. You can sit in silence. You can think slowly. You can exist without being someone. For many people, that feels like relief, not because they hate others, but because they finally stop being observed. This is a big one. People who love staying home often say things like, "I feel more like myself here. I think clearer at home. I can finally relax." That's not coincidence. Psychologically, identity becomes clearer when external pressure drops. No roles, no expectations, no comparison. Home becomes a place where the mind can return to its natural rhythm. And once you notice that difference, going out can feel off. Here's where conflict starts. Because culturally, we reward visibility. Being out equals living life. Being home equals wasting time. So if you enjoy staying home, you start questioning yourself. You see people posting dinners, parties, trips, and you think, should I want this more? But psychology doesn't care about trends. It cares about how different nervous systems recharge. Some recharge through movement and connection, others through stillness and solitude. Both are human. Here's something rarely said. People who enjoy staying home often don't feel bored there. Their minds are already active. They think, they imagine, they replay, they connect ideas. Silence doesn't feel empty, it feels full. That's why loud environments can feel overwhelming, not because they're scary, but because they interrupt inner flow. This matters. Staying home is healthy when it comes from self-awareness, understanding your limits, and choosing recovery. It's unhealthy only when it comes from fear. The behavior might look the same from the outside, but the motivation is completely different. That's why judging people based on behavior alone misses the point. Psychology always asks why, not just what. So if preferring to stay home isn't laziness,
isn't antisocial behavior and isn't something to fix, then where does this preference come from? In the next part, we'll explore how early experiences shape this tendency, why some people associate home with safety, when it's worth listening to this preference and when to gently challenge it, and why society keeps misunderstanding people like this. And I'll share one personal insight that completely reframed this topic for me. People don't just randomly start preferring to stay at home. In many cases, this preference is learned, quietly, over time. For some people, home was the first place where they felt safe, calm, unseen but accepted. Maybe it was the only place where they weren't criticized, or the only place where they didn't have to adapt. So the brain makes a simple association. Home equals relief. Not because the outside world is bad, but because home feels predictable. And the human brain loves predictability.
Psychologically, predictability reduces mental load. When you know what sounds you'll hear, who will be there, what's expected of you, your brain doesn't need to stay alert. For people who are naturally observant or emotionally sensitive, unpredictability is exhausting. Going out means unknown social dynamics, unexpected interactions, sudden changes. Staying home means control. And control, in psychology, is closely tied to a sense of safety. Here's something subtle. People who prefer staying home often feel like the world is loud, not just in sound, but in information, opinions, expectations, noise, movement. Home becomes the one place where the inner and outer world align, where thoughts can finish themselves, where emotions can settle instead of being interrupted. This isn't weakness, it's a need for mental coherence. For some people, going out feels like adding stimulation on top of stimulation. They already feel full. Their mind is already active, their inner life already rich. So when someone says, "Let's go out, it'll be fun," their brain quietly asks, "But what problem does that solve?" Not in a negative way, just in a practical one. If you already feel okay, extra input isn't always appealing. Even when staying home feels right, guilt often follows. You cancel plans, you say no, you choose a quiet evening, and then comes the voice, "Am I wasting my life? Am I becoming boring? Will people stop inviting me?" This guilt doesn't come from inside, it comes from comparison, from the idea that life should look a certain way. Psychology reminds us, well-being isn't about how busy you are, it's about how aligned you feel. I want to pause here and share something personal. For a long time, I thought preferring to stay home meant I was missing something important. I kept pushing myself to go out more, not because I wanted to, but because I thought I should. What changed everything was realizing this simple thing. I didn't feel better after forcing myself out. I felt better after listening to myself. That moment reframed the entire idea of staying in for me. It stopped being avoidance and became self-trust. Now, honesty matters. Sometimes staying home isn't about comfort, it's about fear. And the only way to tell the difference is to ask one question. Does staying home make my life feel smaller or clearer? If it makes life clearer, calmer, more balanced, listen to it. If it slowly shrinks your world, creates isolation, or increases anxiety, that's when gentle challenge helps. Psychology isn't about forcing change, it's about noticing patterns early. Here's the problem. Our culture rewards visibility, busyness, constant engagement. Quiet fulfillment doesn't photograph well. So people who thrive at home often get misunderstood. They're not doing less, they're doing different internal work, thinking, processing, integrating. And that work is invisible, but very real. A full life doesn't mean being everywhere. It means being present, wherever you are. For some people, that happens in crowds. For others, it happens on a couch with silence, a thought, or a moment of stillness. Psychology doesn't rank these preferences, it explains them. If you prefer staying at home, it doesn't mean you're broken, you're antisocial, you're behind. It likely means your mind needs space, your nervous system values calm, your inner world is active, and that's human. So the next time you choose to stay home, instead of questioning yourself, try noticing why. Not with judgment, with curiosity, because understanding your preferences isn't about changing who you are, it's about finally respecting how your mind works.